This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about Ethereum's biggest betrayal, which is CBDCs. This video is going to be the culmination of our week-long foray into the evils of Ethereum, and you're going to be quite surprised by the punchline, which I've saved for today. Things are about to get really dark, but before we cover that, I have to set the stage so you understand the full context of what is going on. We first need to review what we've covered this week. And I'm going to link to all those videos here in a YouTube playlist. You can watch them, but I'm going to summarize them very briefly here. Ethereum, as we know, is moving to proof of stake, this new consensus mechanism, in a few weeks, probably the middle of September, it looks like, which means that tremendous power is going to be taken from the miners and given to the validators, which are kind of the equivalent of miners in a proof of stake system. These validators or stakers are going to be the largest validators or stakers are going to be, number one, the insider beneficiaries of Ethereum's huge pre-mine, which would be people like Vitalik, Joe Lubin, these Ethereum oligarchs. The other largest validators who are going to be actually carrying out validation on the chain are going to be these large regulated entities like Coinbase, Kraken, Lido Finance, etc. Now, these large regulated entities like Coinbase have already shown how eager they are to comply with US government sanctions and restrictions. We talked about that in the Tornado Cash video, which is included in that playlist. The thing about proof of stake, it's very different from proof of work. Under proof of stake, the more coins you have, the more power you have over the network. Under proof of work, having more coins does not give you any extra power over the network. And this is what makes Bitcoin so special and so neutral. If the US government asks Coinbase to censor an Ethereum transaction or an Ethereum address, Coinbase will comply. And we've seen already, this is not speculation, they did comply in the case of Tornado Cash, as did all of the other large regulated entities. Now, by contrast, unlike validation in a proof of stake system, in a proof of work system like Bitcoin, where you have Bitcoin mining, it's a very competitive business. Miners come and go, and there's a lot of churn in the mining set. Proof of stake is the opposite of this. It's anti-competitive. There's no churn in the validator set. Once you have 32 ETH and you stake them, you can continue to collect money forever. So once a staker, always a staker. Staking pools are very sticky. Staking itself, as I talked about in one of those videos in that playlist, which I'll link to, staking itself is a very parasitic and rent-seeking activity. Now, the move to proof of stake that Ethereum is making in the coming weeks, it hides behind this mask of greenness and helping the environment and ESG. But as I've shown in all these videos this week, it's actually just a way to consolidate power over the network and over the financial system. You can watch all those individual videos in this playlist, which I'll link to in the description notes below. So that is part one of the background. Now we need to talk about Joe Lubin. Joe Lubin is an entrepreneur, also the co-founder of Ethereum. He was sort of the business brains behind Ethereum. He wasn't really a coder, but more of a businessman. And he's used his wealth from the Ethereum pre-mine to set up a company called ConsenSys. Now, ConsenSys is important because it owns two key pieces of Ethereum infrastructure. It owns MetaMask, which is the wallet used by almost everyone in Ethereum and DeFi land. ConsenSys also owns Infura, which we've talked about before. This is the company that everyone outsources their Ethereum nodes to. So most Ethereans don't run their own nodes, unlike Bitcoin. Instead, they outsource it to companies like Infura, which is controlled by ConsenSys and Joe Lubin. Even if you don't know about Infura, whenever you use the MetaMask wallet, it will automatically connect to an Infura node. So the great news or the not so great news is that when you use MetaMask and when you use any of the Ethereum infrastructure, chances are you are trusting Joe Lubin and Infura for all of your information about what's happening on the Ethereum blockchain. If you're taking a look at a blockchain, if you're interacting with a blockchain and you're not using your own node, you will need to rely on someone else's node. This is true for Ethereum. It's also true for Bitcoin. The difference is in Bitcoin, everyone runs their own nodes because it's very cheap and easy to do this. You can just download the Bitcoin Core software on an old laptop and do it. Whereas if you want to run an Ethereum node, a full archival node, it will cost tens of thousands of dollars, and it's very technically difficult to do as well. So most people use MetaMask. Most people trust their nodes or trust their information about the Ethereum blockchain to nodes run by Joe Lubin and ConsenSys through Infura. As we said, running your own Ethereum node, it's too complicated and expensive for all but the richest and most tech-savvy folks. If you don't believe this, go try to set up your own Ethereum archival node and you will learn it the hard way. So this is the basic ethos of Ethereum. It is trust, don't verify. And in this way, Ethereum really is a betrayal of the whole crypto revolution, of Satoshi's revolution. The whole point of cryptography and cryptocurrencies is to verify, not to trust. But the way Ethereum is set up is to make sure that you trust people like Vitalik and Joe Lubin and don't verify for yourself. In fact, running a node in Ethereum, running an Ethereum node is discouraged from the top down. And that's why I made a video about Vitalik saying that the whole idea of an average user running a node is a weird mountain man fantasy. This is the ethos of Ethereum. And Vitalik and Joe Lubin would much rather have you trust their nodes. I'm going to link to the Wikipedia article on ConsenSys and also Joe Lubin so you can verify all of this for yourself and you don't have to trust me. Meanwhile, if you're finding this video helpful so far, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share it with a few friends. It's very, very important, as you're going to see, that we get this news out about Ethereum because it is not a neutral coin. It is not something that's ambiguous. It is a threat to humanity. It's a threat to human freedom, as we're going to see in this video. So why am I talking about Joe Lubin, ConsenSys, MetaMask, Infura, etc.? Well, in order to understand this, we're going to have to enter an even darker area, which is the area of CBDCs. CBDC stands for central bank digital currency. The US dollar is currently digital, but it's not yet a CBDC. CBDCs are spy coins, they're surveillance coins. They will be issued by the Federal Reserve and other central banks, and they will be used by the government, by the IRS, by the central banks to track all income and all spending. China really is the pioneer here, as they are in all ways to control and imprison people. They rolled out their CBDC, I believe, in 2020, and they're trying to increase its usage. These CBDCs are almost certainly coming unless we educate enough people in Europe and the US and other parts of the world about the dangers of them. Another problem with CBDCs is they can also be used to target you individually. They can be used to automatically extract individualized taxes or penalties from you. So let's say you made a racist or sexist joke, which I certainly don't condone, on Facebook or Twitter back in 2014. So this is kind of ancient history. Maybe you'd been drinking, you did something stupid, you said something you shouldn't have, or maybe you just voted for the wrong candidate in 2016 or 2020, whether it was the US presidential elections or a local election or election in some other part of the world. Either way, you made a mistake that is now considered to be a mistake, even though it wasn't so bad at the time. So now what's going to happen is the Federal Reserve or the US federal government will now extract a fine from you because of this past transgression. They will they will subtract some of your CBDCs in your account, and there's nothing you can do about it because not your keys, not your coins. And in the case of CBDCs, the government holds the keys. So CBDCs are digital US dollars that can be frozen if someone in government doesn't like you. Digital dollars today can obviously be frozen as well, but CBDCs allow a lot more transparency in terms of tracking, spending, and income because it will be available on the blockchain, just as it is for Bitcoin or Ethereum. So CBDCs are a very, very negative thing. It's hard to spin them in a good way. They basically are a way of creating a digital money prison for the future. I would say that CBDCs are one of the most evil things ever. They must not be allowed to happen in the US. If they do, this is a complete betrayal, as is our central bank and the IRS of the American Revolution. So I think most of us who are viewing this video now can agree that CBDCs are a very nasty, evil thing. But guess what? There are actually people in the crypto space who like CBDCs. We have, for example, Aya Miyaguchi. This is from the World Economic Forum website. She is the executive director of the Ethereum Foundation. And guess what? She likes the World Economic Forum and is willing to work closely with them. Now you're going to understand why I brought up ConsenSys and Joe Lubin and Ethereum and Infura and MetaMask. Here's Joe Lubin. It looks like Joe Lubin, a co-founder of Ethereum, founder of ConsenSys, which controls all the nodes and controls the Ethereum wallet. He actually likes CBDCs. CBDCs, this is a quote from him, give central banks future-oriented tools to allow them to implement monetary policy in more direct, innovative ways and keep pace with technological change. That's another way of saying CBDCs are a digital prison. But this is from the ConsenSys website. We can scroll up here and see that CBDC is a digital form of central bank money that offers central banks unique advantages at the retail and wholesale levels. So this is something that Joe Lubin and ConsenSys like. I will link to their ConsenSys CBDC white paper, in which we can read CBDCs can offer a range of advantages. They can play a central role in advancing the digital assets revolution in regulated, lower risk, and crucially accessible way, helping make financial markets more efficient and available to all global citizens, etc. If we scroll down, we can see that this was signed by Joe Lubin, founder and CEO of ConsenSys. So he has all this power in the Ethereum ecosystem, and he actually likes CBDCs. And in this paper, he's actually suggesting that governments and central banks build their CBDCs on the Ethereum blockchain. This is the shocking news. And so now we can finally understand why politicians, central bankers, the Davos crowd, the World Economic Forum all hate Bitcoin, but they all have nice things to say about Ethereum and its move to proof of stake. This is simply because the Davos crowd cannot control Bitcoin because it uses proof of work, it's decentralized, it's neutral, it didn't have a pre-mine, it's not issued by a corporation or a centralized group like Ethereum. The Davos crowd can easily control Ethereum, and as we've seen in all the videos this week, you just need to take control of the validators, which are these large regulated entities like Coinbase, Kraken, and Lido, and you have control over the ability to censor transactions on the Ethereum blockchain under proof of stake and decide which transactions go through, which do not, which Ethereum addresses can be used, which cannot. And then on top of all of this, we have Joe Lubin and ConsenSys praising CBDCs and trying to bring them to Ethereum. Now, it's important to note that this is not an ESG or environmental thing. The Davos crowd does not actually care about Bitcoin's energy usage or carbon footprint. We know this because they don't seem to have a problem flying their private jets everywhere, running their large manufacturing factories all over the world, polluting the world with their companies and with their 4 or 5 houses and their private jets, etc. But when it comes to Bitcoin, they seem to dislike it for some reason. Here's an old article from the World Economic Forum talking about, this is from December of 2017, making the false prediction that by 2020, Bitcoin will consume more power than the world did in 2017. Not true, didn't happen, their models are faulty, but here's the World Economic Forum pretending to be a steward of the environment, of the beauty of nature. But they don't care about that. They care only about power. So now we're going to end with a $10,000 question. If CBDCs are brought to the Ethereum blockchain, and I'm not saying they're going to be, there will be a long struggle over this, but it looks like ConsenSys, Joe Lubin, and other oligarchs that are involved with Ethereum would really like this. Will this massively pump the fiat value of ETH? Quite possibly, I have to admit, unfortunately. Will Ethereum even flip Bitcoin if it is allowed to become the base layer for global CBDCs? Quite possibly, I have to admit. There's also the possibility that Bitcoin will maintain its huge lead in terms of its market cap and its liquidity, etc., as people rush to escape the digital prison of Ethereum and CBDCs. So the more people we can bring over to Bitcoin, the safer they will be, and the more we will frustrate Joe Lubin, ConsenSys, the World Economic Forum, the Davos crowd, and all their cronies who are trying to bring this digital prison to us. Now, whether Ethereum flips Bitcoin or not, only time will tell. It's important to remember at this point that you will always be able to earn Bitcoin by providing goods and services to people and getting paid in Bitcoin. No one can stop you from transacting in Bitcoin with anyone else in the world because it's a peer-to-peer system of payment, and you just need to learn how to use it in a sovereign manner, not use it with PayPal or something like that, but actually set up your own node, set up your own hardware wallet and your own software wallet, etc., and learn how to send Bitcoin directly. If when CBDCs are rolled out, even if they don't allow you to purchase Bitcoin directly, there will be workarounds for those who want to trade out of CBDCs and get into Bitcoin. So, for example, you could always buy a car with your CBDC dollars and then sell it to a Bitcoiner in exchange for some Bitcoin. So there will be workarounds, but we can never let these CBDCs get too much traction, because the digital lockdown that will happen will put 2020 into perspective and make it seem quite small by contrast. I think you can expect a large global Bitcoin circular economy that is used and populated by freedom-loving people from every country in the world, obviously not just the US. But I think the time is coming, and it's coming rapidly, when owning some Bitcoin will become a necessity and not just a luxury if you want to stay outside of the CBDC digital prison. And then I'll end with this warning. In the meantime, if you use or support Ethereum, you are basically consorting with the devil. You are consorting with Vitalik, who is Judas Iscariot. This is not a religious opinion. This is a metaphor that I'm using, but it's a very clear metaphor. Ethereum and the Davos crowd are the enemies of freedom. They're the enemies of bodily autonomy. They are the enemies of free speech, of the right to protect yourself and your family using tools of self-defense. They're the enemies of free thought. They're the enemies of all autonomous existence. And so this is a question I've been getting a lot this week. For example, when I talked about how Ethereum is basically being a staker on Ethereum is a rent-seeking activity, and I got a question from Entropy137 here saying, what's the big deal then? Let's assume I only care about myself. Why shouldn't I stake ETH and be part of the system? Because I want to make some money. And I responded saying the reason you shouldn't do it, because in the process you are helping to forge the very chains and handcuffs that will be used to control you and your family later this decade. Short-term self-interest is inferior to long-term self-interest, and this is why we have to support Bitcoin, make sure that it succeeds at the expense of Ethereum. Ethereum is clearly on the side of the enemy. There are many good Ethereans. There are a lot of normal people who use it who are unaware of this. But the management of Ethereum, the original oligarchs, people like Vitalik and Joe Lubin, are consorting with the world central bankers. They're consorting with the World Economic Forum. They're courting the Davos crowd. They're courting central bankers and trying to get Ethereum to become the base layer for CBDCs. And so I end my comment by saying, avoid ETH. Your future self and children and grandchildren will thank you. If you're looking out for your long-term self-interest and the long-term self-interest of yourself, your family, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, you will do your best to spread the word about the plague of Ethereum and the digital prison possibilities that it might enable in the future. This is why I'm a Bitcoiner. This is why I only own Bitcoin. And this message is very urgent, so I'd appreciate you sharing this video with anyone you think might benefit from it. In the meantime, please hit that subscribe and like buttons if you found this video helpful. Share this video with as many people as you can. Leave me a question or comment in the description in the comment section below. I'd love to know what you think about this. Is this just crazy talk, or does this have a real chance of happening? If you have a chance, go through and read the ConsenSys white paper. It contains a lot of gems too that I was not able to cover in this video. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.